period of time. Uh, we are witnessing things in this country that I never thought we would ever see. Just alone, in 10 days after Uvalde, we've had 21 mass shootings in this country alone. We've had over 246 mass shootings in 22 weeks in 2022. There are some things we can put in place. Raising the age from 18 to 21 is one of them. We keep these kids that are still making bad decisions from making the ultimate bad decision in purchasing a gun and going and using it. I have guns. I believe in the Second Amendment, but I also believe that there's a right by government to put certain laws in place. And this is one I think we could do. There are certain exceptions. I'm not oblivious to the fact that southern half of our state is a hunting part of the state. We exempted shotguns because we I do understand the impact of shotguns with hunting and kids. We exempted active members of the armed forces, qualified law enforcement officers defined in Title 1441A, and a person who's a licensed carry concealed deadly weapon pursuant to 1441. Those exemptions are out there not so that people could get guns. It's the fact that if you are in the military, you have possession of guns, and we want to make it legal for you to continue to do that if you're under 21 in the military. The same thing with police officers. I'm not trying to single out a profession for any special treatment. 20-year-olds do get hired as police officers, and they have to have that ability to carry those weapons if that's what their department wants them to do. Any questions?
At this point, I'll turn it over to the committee if the committee has some questions. Representative Short.
Today is a day that I had wished we'd never have to be here, to be honest with you. Glad to see everybody in this room. A little background, because many of you don't know me. I'm from Seaford, past fire chief in the community. Our department has a lot of the largest equipment in the county and the state. We run 3 paid ambulances out of that station. We have about 15 paid staff on the EMS side. Today is a day of discussion about constitutional issues. And I'm dismayed that we're having a 1 hour and 15-minute committee hearing. And I'm disappointed, irrespective of what your opinion might be, pro or con about these bills, that you're going to get 1 minute to say something. Some of you probably have traveled hour and a half. Some of you probably spent $20 to get here in the gasoline prices today. In 1 minute, I think we are not allowing you to talk. I'm willing to stay here as long as it takes. And I've been places where it takes a lot of time to do things. I spent 3 days in Cambridge fighting a fire one time. My wife wondered where the hell I was. This is going to be constitutionally challenged, and I think every one of you, pro or con, should have more time than 1 minute, 60 seconds. We have a bill out there called the School Safety and Security Act. It was funded 2 years at $5 million apiece. You get about $3,000, $30,000 to each school if they wanted it. A lot of them took advantage of it. It was depleted. Then it wasn't funded for 2 years. Now the state of Delaware has over $1.2 billion of excess cash. We've got so much money, I don't even know how much money we have. Not counting the ARPA money and the federal money that's flowing this way over probably another $2 billion. And we're struggling to fund that bill today. And another bill, House Bill 388, which is a school bill that allowed constables in the school that don't have constables or SROs. We're arguing over 5 billion or 10 million to allocate to those two issues. 1.2 billion. We've got the money. We've got the time. We should do it. And if we don't do it this year, I did an editorial this past week. I'm saying we put $100 million in the pool, allow these schools to get safe. That's what we should be talking about today. School safety, that's an issue that make a difference. You might say, why am I bringing this up? Because when I sit in my driveway that I used to go out of when I was fire chief, that red car was parked there. I look across the street and I see West Seaford Elementary. And I see multiple doors out onto a huge playground. It's an old school. It's been there since DuPont was in Seaford. And the idea back then was the bell would ring, all those doors would open, all those kids would exit those classrooms, and they'd come out to play. It was recess. That bell doesn't ring anymore. And all those kids don't flow out of those doors to go out to recess at West Seaford Elementary. My daughter taught school there. Now she has my large office in my insurance agency. She told me to get out. She quit that school. And my two granddaughters, since the second grade that she taught, are being taught in that room, which used to be my office. It's a homeschool. They're safe. We're willing to spend that time and that money. And the reason I'm troubled today is, and I didn't know whether to say this or not, I'm going to. So I think it needs to be said. Pastor Dukes down here said, you need to tell that story. I've seen what gun violence will do. I've been called out at 2:30 in the morning to go into a home to get kids out where there was a double murder situation. He shot the lover and the wife. Seen it. It's not clean. It's not sterile like this conversation. We're not wearing ties. It's a mess. Smells. Got a bad odor. And I still see it. And I've been retired since 1993. And I told Pastor Dukes, Timmy Dukes, Representative Dukes here, my good friend. And this is very personal, but I'm going to tell it, Madam Chair, if you don't mind. And I might get upset about it. But I've had this dream 3 times. As I sit in that driveway, 3 times I've had this since Texas. And I'm sitting in my F-150. It's a great pickup truck. And across the street at that school, there's 2 guys trying to get in that back door where I used to go play basketball. 2 guys. And I noticed they're armed. And they move from one door to the other. They can't get in, it's secured. But they're trying to get in. And each time, I drive across that yard to the end of the fence where I can get to them because I've got to act. I'm going to be asked, why didn't you act? Why didn't you do something? You used to be the fire chief, and your dad was chief of detectives of the Delaware State Police. You know better. You should have done something. And the first guy, I run over him. I kill him. And I think he deserved that in that dream. I pin the next guy at the school front door because he can't get in. And I'm a concealed carry guy. I killed him. I've had that dream 3 times. And it tears me up. This whole thing tears me up. I think we ought to be talking something where we can really make a difference. This is going to divide people. This issue is going to make this room just go to the corners. May have no impact. we need to spend $100 million to secure our schools. Let's do something. We've got the money. Now's the time. Let's do it. Let's spend the money. Let's get it out there and give these schools what it need to have, and we could sleep a little bit better. Hopefully I can. That's all I got, Madam Chair. Appreciate it.
Thank you. As we can see already, we all have a story and the reason why we stand here. And we need to appreciate those stories. And Representative Short, we really appreciate you sharing. I know it was difficult. Are there any other questions from the committee? If none, we'll go right to Representative Dukes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all for being here. This isn't a fun day. When I drove up from Laurel this morning, an hour drive, I got to tell you, it wasn't necessarily something I was looking forward to. This is a very emotional hearing. I want you to know that the 5 legislators up here, 3 Democrat, 2 Republican, none of us take this lightly. I know that none of you are here because you take it lightly. When I watched the atrocities unfold on May 24th, I knew that it would change our last 12 days of legislature. Probably none of the gun bills were even going to be run. We'd kind of taken a break from it. We're trying to get through with running the budget, different money bills, finalizing some things, and finishing out our 151st General Assembly strong, doing it together, Democrats and Republicans. As I sat there that Tuesday night with my wife, we're very blessed that we have 4 children. And the most precious thing about those 4 children is we have 5 grandchildren. I just spent last week with them in the Outer Banks, all 5, ages 2 to 8. I'd do anything in the world for those 5 kids. In August, I'm going to have my 6th grandchild. I love them more than life. I say that because as I watched the things unfold Tuesday, May 24th, that evening, my wife and I sat there and had a very serious conversation about things that needed to be done in America and just how we would feel this absolute tragedy happened to one of our 5. I want you to know that I look at these pieces of legislation through the eyes of my grandchildren. This is not an easy subject. Something has to be done. We have serious issues in America. I want to say in Delaware, I'm very thankful for Representative Longhurst and her leadership on mental health issues. In my 10 years here, we have made substantial moves to address mental health issues in our schools. I applaud Representative Longhurst for that. I have partnered with her and been a co-chair on some of those bills. We also have instituted red flag laws. And we also have, we've addressed some FTAP issues. I think Delaware has been, in a lot of ways, aggressive in addressing some of these issues. In recognizing that, I want to ask a couple questions to Representative Schwarzkopf, the Speaker, about House Bill 451. Mr. Speaker, you and I talked yesterday about this, and I can appreciate the intent of this legislation, but I asked this question from a perspective of a little kid who grew up around guns. I was the youngest of 3 boys when I was 9 years old, standing in the corner of the field with my dad next door, or standing right beside me. I had a little single shot Winchester 410, and a dove started flying across the field, and it's almost like it flew into my barrel, and I shot my first dove at 9 years old. Guns were not something I was ever afraid of. It was something that was always part of my life. I own several guns now. A lot of the guns that I have were passed down to me. I remember at 12 years old when I actually got an 1100 Remington pump, 12-gauge shotgun for Christmas. It's a gun that I still have. I still have the 870 Remington pump that I was given, a hand-me-down from my brother. So my concern is with this legislation, and I want to figure out a way to include someone like myself who may be 18 and wants to buy a gun, but is restricted to, that has been through gun safety courses, that's had a father that helped train him and helped him respect guns, that I haven't had a propensity for violence or for murder. What can we do as far as an amendment to create a space for an 18-year-old who has a legal guardian or a parent that oversees them, that this young adult has gotten proper safety? Is there an allowance anywhere in this for that to happen? Or is there a way that we can have an amendment for an 18-year-old to purchase a gun with parent authority or permission?
So this bill does not say that a under 21-year-old cannot possess a gun. It has to be under the supervision of somebody over 21. Doesn't have to be a parent, somebody over 21. They can't purchase the gun, no. But they can use the gun. They can use any type of gun, any type of legal gun, as long as they're under the supervision of somebody under 21. Shotguns are exempt, so your 9-year-old with the shotgun, which I wouldn't recommend you go by yourself, obviously, but a 9-year-old with a shotgun's fine. An 18-year-old with a shotgun can go and purchase a shotgun and go hunting by themselves.
Are you open for an amendment that would allow an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old to purchase a gun with the supervision of a parent or guardian if they've had proper training?
I don't know what would be proper training, but at this point, no, I wouldn't.
Okay, thank you.
I think anybody under the age of 21 should be under the supervision of somebody that's over 21.
Does the bill allow for that?
What for yeah, they have another option is the concealed deadly permit part.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? If none, we'll go to public comment.
If you would just come forward to the podium when you hear your name called. I will start with Dennis Greenhouse, then Denise Glendenning, then David Chen, then Aaron Chronister. You have 1 minute to speak.
If I could just ask the names that she gives you, if you can just stand in line next to the podium so that we can make sure that we get you in there. So if your name was called, just stand to the side of the podium. Please make your way over there.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Dennis Greenhouse. I'm representing the Delaware Coalition Against Gun Violence and also the Giffords organization. The speaker has already mentioned that 6 of the 9 deadliest mass shootings since 2018 were done by people 21 years of age or younger. When anybody brings up raising the age to purchase a firearm to 21, we hear a lot of arguments. One is you can vote at 18, but we never are told the fact that in Delaware, you have to be 21 to bet in a casino. You have to be 21 to buy cigarettes, buy a beer, drive a tractor trailer across state lines. Some police departments require you to be 21 before you are a sworn police officer. And we believe that purchasing a firearm should be included in this list. So let's raise the age to purchase a firearm to 21, and let's pass this bill. Thank you.
Just please make sure you state your name for the record.
My name is Denise Clendenning. I'm speaking on 451 and also 450. So this bill here, what people I think fail to realize is you make laws using emotion, you make laws using your own beliefs, your own opinions. You are not using laws in the way that they should be. There's already laws in place against shooting children, shooting people, and murdering people with guns. It seems to me that you're all profiling under 21-year-olds as if they are guilty before they're even charged with a crime. And that is a disgrace in itself. Though that age group are able to be married, they can have families. How are they supposed to protect their families with a 12-gauge shotgun or a muzzle loader with black powder? Is that how they're supposed to defend their families? Who even uses black powder at that age? It's really a terrible thing what you're doing. I hope more young people see this and know the only way to stop someone is if you can defend yourself.
Thank you. David Chen, then Aaron Chronister, then Carrie McGlusky, then Clint Brothers.
I'm Dr. David Chen, and I'm a physician scientist specializing in firearm violence prevention and hospital care, Christiana Care Health System. Today in the United States, there are more firearms than there are human beings. In 2020 and 2021, firearm sales surged to all-time highs. Simultaneously, the #1 leading cause of death in children under 18 has now become by firearm. The bills before you today, HB 450 and 451, focus on reducing access to the most lethal means and for the most vulnerable persons. Research studies are beginning to point towards their effectiveness, but the only reason we know this is by comparing states and dates and the differences between action and inaction. As a clinician and an academic, I can tell you this: what happened in Uvalde was statistically inevitable. There's no longer a question of if it will recur, but when. We've had our decade of wishful thinking after Sandy Hook, with which to observe that failing to address problematic access to lethal means is exactly like putting Band-Aids on bullet holes. And what I can tell you, having done this on the literal street pavement of the state, holding pressure on gunshot wounds, is that if you want to stop the bleeding, you must act upon the source. As a pediatrician,
Thank
I
you, your
urge you to
time
pass
has
these bills.
expired.
Also know that if you didn't get your complete speech in, you can make sure that you email it to us and we will put it in for the record.
Hi, my name is Erin Chronister. I'm with the Women's Defense Coalition. This is my daughter, Olivia. She shoots with me. So we've all heard all the data and statistics before. We've talked about how many women become victims of sexual violence. 1 in 3 for Black women, 1 in 3 for Hispanic women, and 1 in 4 for white women. We could talk about how there were bills put up after Parkland to secure our schools. We could talk about how I did data and communications cabling. We held the state contract and did all the cabling for all the schools. And I can't tell you how many days we showed up there unannounced and walked in a back door. We walked around the school. We passed administrators. We passed students. We passed staff. Nobody questioned us. We were in t-shirts and boots with bags. We could have been anybody. And we've done that up and down the state. Out of all of the schools in the state of Delaware, there were 2 that we could not get into and that we had to be buzzed in the front. So we can continue to have this conversation and we can look at banning guns, but before we start looking at that, I think we should absolutely look at school security.
Thank you.
Carrie McGlusky, Clint Brothers, Dr. Leah Orkinnick, Stevie Keeley.
Hi, my name is Carrie Molesky. I'm a volunteer with Delaware Coalition Against Gun Violence and a Delaware resident. 18 to 20-year-olds commit gun homicides at triple the rate of adults 21 years and older. I think there are complicated explanations for this, like their brains are still developing and their brains respond to stress differently than the brains of adults, and they have an undeveloped prefrontal cortex. There's also one easy explanation. 18 to 20-year-olds commit gun homicides at triple the rate of adults because they have easy access to firearms. A state can't change brain science and development, but it can change laws. Delaware should not allow these children access to deadly weapons. Please vote yes on HB 451 here and when it goes to the House floor. Thank you.
Clint Brothers. I only have 1 minute, so I'll just bring up a relevant scenario to this bill. Adam Lanza from Connecticut, Newtown shooting. He didn't buy his gun. He didn't want to wait the 14 days. So he stole a gun and then committed a shooting. So I think we should look at one of the deadliest shootings and just look at the scenario here, and it doesn't help. I think we focus on legislation like HB 423, where it will make it harder for folks to get guns that shouldn't have them. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Leah Orchnik. I'm a pediatric psychologist with Nemours Children's Health and chair of the State Advocacy Committee with the Delaware Psychological Association, and I'm speaking on behalf of DPA. We support legislation that aims to prevent gun violence. Some opponents have focused on mental illness as the sole or primary cause of firearms-related deaths or mass shootings, but this is misleading. The US does not have significantly higher rates of people with mental illness than other industrialized nations, but we do have more firearms than any other country, and research has shown that above any other predictor, it is this access to guns that leads to gun-related deaths, with youth 18 to 21 among the highest group of offenders. The tragedies in our country as the result of gun violence are horrific, and they are preventable with prevention-based policies. DPA has supported past legislative efforts, and we will continue to support legislation around these issues, including HB 450 and 451. Thank you.
So after Stevie Keeley, we're going to have Christine Iannelli, Jeff Haig, Amy Yarnall, and then John Rigby.
Hi, my name is Stevie Keeley. I'm a resident in Wilmington, Delaware. I have a young child. She is well-versed in firearm safety, long guns, handguns, you name it. This kid's trained and safe with them. Who are you to tell my daughter when she is considered an adult that she is not going to be able to protect herself with any means that she is comfortable and she is trained in? Who are you to threaten her safety? My family was protected in the riots in 2020. You know what they were protected by? Long guns, semi-auto. A lot of the ones that you guys have on that list, we used them to protect our family business. We had full-size pickup trucks ramming our buildings. The police were nowhere to be found. They could not make it to us. They were busy protecting the shoe stores. They physically could not get to us. Do not threaten my child's safety when she is 18.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Christine Iannelli, Policy Director for the Delaware Department of Justice. I'm here today to express the Attorney General's strong support for House Bill 451, which would raise the minimum age to buy a firearm to 21 with limited exceptions. We view this legislation as a common sense step forward, one that recognizes both the incredible responsibility of gun ownership and the science of brain development. Under federal law, you can't buy a handgun until you're 21. In Delaware, you can't buy alcohol or tobacco until you're 21. We passed those reforms because we know that the rational parts of the brain take longer than 18 years to develop, and that some of our rights and privileges entail tremendous risk and responsibility. The science is clearer today than ever, and we can think of no greater responsibility than owning a gun. Thank you.
So next we have Jeff Haig, then Amy Yarnall, then John Rigby, then Amy Shea, then Joseph Taylor.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you. I'm Jeff Haig. I'm president of Delaware State Sportsman Association, and I really don't want to be here today. I'm very cynical about what's happening today. I would rather go back to the time when we worked on together the red flag laws, FTAP. We came to a solution by talking, not by dictating what you feel is pertinent at this time. 80% of the crimes committed, murders, shootings, are gang-related, drug-related with handguns, not long guns. Nobody's been shot with a long gun in Delaware or murdered in over 15 years. Another point, you just banned the possession of paintball guns, airsoft guns, kids riding bicycles down the street with a chain. That's a dangerous weapon. They're not allowed to have them. So, you need to be careful what you wish for. You're alienating too many people instead of working together like the Delaware way. It's a shame.
Hello, I'm Reverend Amy Yarnell, and I serve as chapter lead for Kent County Moms Demand Action. I support releasing HB 451 from committee. I'm here because we cannot keep living like this. This past weekend, our nation experienced 13 mass shootings, 13 in one weekend. We do not have to live like this. We have this many shootings because of the choices we as a state and a nation have made. It is time to make different choices. Young adults make up a disproportionate amount of shooters and gun homicides, as we've seen in the mass shooting events in Buffalo and Uvalde. Both shooters were 18. Passing this bill in Delaware will reduce the chances of a similar shooting happening here. You have the power to do something about this. Please use your power to make our state safer. Vote for HB 451. Thank you.
Hi, my name's John Rigby. I'm a resident of Delaware. And I'm also the father of 2 daughters. And I'm very concerned about the fact that while, yes, 18 to 20-year-olds create some crime, it's only a small amount of those that do so. And almost all of them are male. And basically because a small portion of people are doing something wrong, you're depriving young women who are vulnerable of the ability to defend themselves. And yeah, they could have a shotgun, but most young women can't handle the recoil of a shotgun. I've trained a number of them, and they can't do it. So you're basically depriving them of the right to protect their lives. And very often, these are people who need to protect their lives because of the domestic situation or what have you. A long gun's the only option they have, pistol caliber carbine, whatever, and you're depriving them of that. They're not going to have, a 21-year-old there to supervise them. They're going to be alone in their home because they can live in a home alone. They can get married. So thank you.
So after Amy Shea, then Joseph Taylor, then Vicky Gordy Stith, then Beth Parsons, then Megan Walls, then Rich Mercanti. Sorry, go ahead.
My name is Amy Shea, and I'm a parent and teacher. I support releasing HB 451 from committee. I'm here because I'm heartbroken, exasperated, and frightened. Every day one of my daughters goes to her high school or college class feels more and more like a day when she might not come home. Every day I teach feels like a day when I can be shot in the parking lot or in my classroom. Recently, an unstable student was removed from my class, and I learned that he lives near me. For weeks, I feared for my family's safety. I cannot begin to express the outrage and heartbreak that I feel for my students, former students, and their families who have lost loved ones to suicide and gun violence, often at the hands of a young person. Passing this bill in Delaware will save lives. Compared to those 21 and older, young people aged 18 to 20 are at an elevated risk of attempting suicide and engaging in violent behaviors. For the safety of our families, my students, and my fellow educators, I urge you to vote this bill out of committee. Thank you.
My name is Joseph Taylor. Promulgation of laws that are against the United States Constitution carry no force. They are illegal, in plain matter of fact. These gun bills you are planning on passing will negatively impact public safety. They'll create a sense of anarchy within the state where they don't trust government because you're stepping on foundational laws. The oppression of constitutionally protected rights is what you will be completing. Oppression of constitutionally protected rights, right, is an abuse of federal law. and something that I think the legislature could be held accountable for criminally.
Good morning. I'm Vicki Gordy-Stith. I am a pastor, a veteran, a mother, a volunteer for Moms Demand Action, working with parent survivors of gun violence. I speak today in support of House Bill 51. As an officer in the Navy, I had sailors in my division who were 18 to 20 years old. Access to firearms required training and qualification in order for them to use the firearms. Even then, they had to use these firearms under supervision. Statistically, 18 to 20-year-olds commit homicide at 3 times the rate of adults over 21 years old. Additionally, in Delaware, deaths to firearms are the #1 cause of death for children and teens. My own son died at age 20 from a gunshot wound to the head. At a recent multi-faith prayer vigil, we had faith leaders from 7 different communities, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, and Unitarian, and they gathered to say enough. So we invite you, please, to use your power to release House Bill 451.
Thank you. Next, we have Beth Parsons, then Megan Walls, then Rich McCarty, then Daryl Chambers, then Richard Elwanger.
Just to make a note, is it 15 seconds when they start hearing that ring on your phone?
No, it's right at the end.
It's right there. Okay, just so that people know that when you start hearing that ring and it's kind of close.
Good morning. My name is Beth Parsons. I live in Dover. I also own a small business in Dover called Shooter's Choice, gun store, shooting range, training facility. I'm not really sure where you're trying to go with this bill because, of course, nobody wants to see mass shootings. And thank you for bringing up 1 minute is not long enough. But from 1900 to 2004, which includes the years of the assault ban, there were an average of there were 104 mass shootings, an average of 1.13 per year. From 2004 to 2012, there were 28 mass shootings, or an average of 3.5 per year. What we've done is we've enforced made a lot of laws that we have not enforced. That's a 200% increase. Why don't we stick with the laws we have, enforce them, and try to get mental health issues addressed before these things happen? Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Longhurst and members of the committee, and thank you, Mr. Speaker, for sponsoring this legislation. I'm Dr. Megan Walls, testifying on behalf of Nemours Children's Health. Our mission is to restore and promote the health of children beyond medicine, beyond our hospital walls, to ensure healthy communities. Limiting access to firearms saves lives, especially for teens and very young adults who, by virtue of brain development, lack fully matured frontal lobes and are known to engage in more risky behavior. Laws like this not only prevent homicides, they prevent suicides in our young people. Nemours serves children who are affected by gun violence daily, from emergency room visits to follow-up care. Children who witness violence have poor outcomes. Trauma changes the way kids think, feel, and behave. The best approach to medicine is prevention. We stand with the families and the communities who have lost individuals to gun violence, and partners and legislators who are working towards better solutions to ensure healthy and safe families and children in Delaware. Thank you.
My name is Rich Mercanti. I often hear the question, why do people have firearms of the type covered by HB 450 and HB 451? The answer is simple. It's our right under the Delaware and the U.S. Constitutions. Driving a car is not a right, but a privilege. Yet high-performance vehicles capable of twice the nationwide speed limits are owned by millions of Americans. And yes, people drinking and driving cause the deaths of innocent people. However, responsible drivers are not penalized for the actions of irresponsible drivers by withholding their ability to own any type of vehicle they choose. And if they were, it would not result in less carnage from drinking and driving. The only way to reduce vehicular homicide is to prosecute drivers who violate the law. Please follow the same rationale and vote against any legislation limiting the constitutional rights of gun owners who have never done anything wrong.
So next we have Daryl Chambers, then Richard Elwinger, then Tracy Crook, then Kenneth Jones.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daryl Chambers. I'm from the city of Wilmington, Delaware. Wilmington represents about 7% of state population. But last year, 2021, we accounted for over 50% of the shootings and the homicide. And unlike some of the folks, some of our legislators who dream about children dying, I actually had my child die on the street corner. So I'm a survivor, and I respond to every shooting and every homicide. And we need some real serious change in the gun law, and we need common sense. So I support House Bill 451. Thank you.
Good morning, Richard Elwinger. I'm a retired DEA agent of Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Field Division. I worked in Delaware and I looked all through Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I've seen kids slinging drugs, and I've taken guns off kids. And they weren't 18. They were 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old kids. They were breaking the law. And all the laws in the world won't stop anybody from breaking the law. We have to incarcerate them, put them in jail, and go back to what we have to do, securing our schools. This will not stop anything other than increasing crime, another pipeline of someone to get what they want. Again, you want to stop school shootings, you harden the schools, you put one entryway in, and you arm people to stop the evil. To quote the sheriff in Florida, evil can't be dead enough, and that's the only way you can stop it. Unfortunately, that's the life. I was a DEA agent for 23 years. I carried an AR-15 with 30-round mags and 17-round mag pistols. I was not limited to fight evil. Thank you.
So after we have Tracy Crook, then Kenneth Jones, then Kirsten Olson, then Steve Benz.
Hello, my name is Tracy Crook, and I'm a Moms Demand Action volunteer. I live in Newark, and I do support HB 451. I'm testifying today because I am angry and heartbroken at the proliferation of gun violence in our country. I am shocked that a teenager, an 18-year-old, can legally purchase a firearm in Delaware. While 18 is considered the age of majority by the law, some activities that can directly harm others and oneself have a higher age threshold. The minimum drinking age is 21, and you must be 21 to purchase tobacco products. All Delawareans are depending on this body to enact laws to make Delaware a safer place, and I urge you to support HB 451. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Kenneth Jones. I'm retired from active duty service in 2010 at Dover Air Force Base, and I continue to serve as civil service there to this day. I took leave today so that you can see one of the many who have spent their entire adult lives in defense of the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. It is painful to realize how many of you have absolutely no regard for what I was willing to die for. But I will have to admit that today my eyes have been opened. I do believe that we need to think about 18-year-olds, because if what all the doctors are saying are true, then maybe we need to change the age for being able to vote. We need to change the age for being able to serve in the military. They need to be older, because 18-year-olds cannot stand on their own. They are not adults. They need to be 21. So if that's the thought process that you want to follow, then we need bigger changes than just guns. Thank you for your time.
So next we have Kirsten Olson, then Steve Benz, then Sarah Stowens, then Steve Buches, then Stephanie Ingram, then Matthew Gale.
I'm Kirsten Olson, CEO of Children and Families First. Our mission is to help children facing adversity on their journey to adulthood. We believe strongly in using brain science and evidence-based approaches in our work, which is why we're here to offer our support for HB 451. At CFF, we serve children daily who are impacted by gun violence, offering school and community-based trauma supports to help kids heal. And while these services are critically important, another key strategy is preventing gun violence by taking steps to ensure that guns are not available to kids who are at high risk for using them to harm themselves or others. Science tells us that the adolescent brain does not fully develop until age 25, which means that adolescents are more likely than adults to engage in impulsive and risky behaviors. By changing the age limit for legal possession of most firearms from 18 to 21, HB 451 will not only prevent homicides, but also suicides, allowing more Delaware youth to grow up to become healthy, productive adults.
Morning, my name is Steve Benz. I am a Marine Corps veteran, also a member of the NRA, the Delaware State Sportsmen Association, and Gun Owners of America. I'm here to speak in opposition to both bills, as well as any other bill that would erode our freedoms, make us subjects, make us sheep. I'm here to tell you we are not sheep. We are lions. We are lions. And we have a right that was given by our forefathers who fought and died for our liberty. And I personally will not stand quietly by and allow that liberty to go away. And I know that there are lots and lots of citizens of this state who also feel the exact same way. I am a responsible gun owner. 99% or more of gun owners are all responsible. You cannot hold that large of a number responsible for a few who obtain their weapons illegally and the few that may perhaps obtain them legally. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for hearing my public comment. My name is Sarah Stones, and I'm here on behalf of Christiana Care in support of both bills. We have submitted letters of support, but wanted to ensure that our comments were heard in public. It has never been more clear that we must act. We must ensure that our children and our communities are safe environments and we can support healthy development, both physically and emotionally. While it is certainly clear that steps need to be taken across our communities, ensuring that our children aren't able to purchase firearms is a smart action and the right action. Thank you for your commitment to the wellness of our communities with your support to this critical public health measure and HB 450. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Stephen Fuchs. I'm a lifelong gun owner. I started at 16. I got my first gun at 16 because my parents brought me up the right way. They told me what was right or wrong, and they made me believe it. But you can hear from all the experts and the doctors, oh, the kids, they need this, they need that. They need the parents. They need the parents to be there. They need the parents to love them and do what they need to protect them. We also need the schools taken care of. We need that stuff because, as you can see from the other lady who walked in the schools, they don't care. Why don't you care about the kids in the schools? They're the most precious things that we have, and it just doesn't seem like the legislature here cares that enough about them. So I urge against voting these two bills, and the one for the schools, absolutely. You need that bad. Thank you.
So we have Stephanie Ingram, then Matthew Gale, then Jonathan Street, then Terrence Baker.
I'm Stephanie Ingram, president of the Delaware State Education Association. Despite research that suggests most active shooters are school age and have a connection to the school, and data that shows that 18 to 20-year-olds commit gun homicides at a rate 3 times higher than adults 21 and older do, today Delaware will join the few states who have stepped up to close the gaps that allow minors to legally purchase high-powered firearms. Guns are getting into the hands of people who choose to walk into schools and kill multiple people and educators. The latest tragedy at Robb Elementary yet again underscores the need for evidence-based, common sense gun safety laws that keep deadly weapons out of the hands of those too immature to purchase and use them responsibly. We thank Representative Schwarzkopf for moving forward on a policy that keeps guns in the hands of responsible owners.
Good evening. I stand here today against HB 451. I know with the recent situations that's been happening the past couple of weeks, I know a lot of people think that those at the age of 18 shouldn't own or possess a firearm, but I think a lot of people forget that there are responsible 18-year-olds that don't go out and go out and, excuse me, that don't go out and hurt people. They use their firearm either for hunting or for self-protection. And I think the main problem that we have is that we're not educating enough gun safety, or we're not promoting enough gun safety, gun training, and teaching these kids about gun laws. Thank you.
Sir, can you just say your name into the record? We didn't catch your name.
Oh, my apologies. My name is Matthew Gale.
Thank you.
So next we have Jonathan Street, then Terrence Baker, then Mitch Denham, then Brooke Knight.
Who's up now?
Jonathan Street.
Okay. Is Jonathan in the building? If not, who's next? Is this Jonathan? Who's next on the
So we
list?
have Jonathan Street, then Terrence Baker, then Mitch Denham, then Brooke Knight.
Terrence, are you here?
Yep, right here.
Okay, thank you.
For the record, Terrence Baker. I oppose 451 and 450. You say you want to bring about gun control. I say you should harden the schools first. You say that 18-year-olds aren't mature enough to own a firearm. But yet, on the other hand, you say 10-year-olds can choose their gender. I'm truly confused.
Okay, can we keep to the?
I'm keeping it, ma'am. I didn't.
Thank you.
So the problem we have here is a mental health problem. You all know that, but you also have a political agenda. And we know that too. As Mao Zedong said, is that political power comes from the end of a rifle. And when you disarm a population, you have the power to do whatever you want. The Constitution does not give us the rights. God gave us the rights. The Constitution holds you in check to not infringe upon these rights. So in closing, I would like to name some other
Thank you
gun
for
advocates.
your
Joseph
time.
Stalin, Adolf Hitler, Mao
Your
Zedong,
time. Thank you.
so on and so forth.
Next, we have Mitch Denham, then Brooke Knight, then Bill Rounds, then Jeffrey Benyon.
If you could please make your way so that we can get as many people speaking as possible to the front.
Hello, I'm Mitch Denham. I'm the president of Delaware Gun Rights. The idea that we are here discussing any kind of gun control inside of an armed building while our children are in a building that is unarmed is beyond my comprehension. You want to say that 18-year-olds can vote, 18-year-olds can join the military, they can enter into contracts to purchase vehicles, homes, get married, but they're not capable of purchasing something to defend their home, I believe, which is in the Delaware Constitution, defend their marriage/family, which is in the Delaware Constitution. That's absolute insanity. I don't support this bill in any way, shape, or form. I would support the idea of making our children safer. I would support the idea of Capitol Police no longer protecting this building and protecting our schools. But I don't support this. Thank you for your time.
Once again, I'm just going to ask everybody to hold their applause. If you can't, then I'll probably ask you to leave. So let's try to, we're doing really well right now that we're keeping our passions at least a little bit in check. So go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Alan Knight. I live in Hunter's Run. I'm a U.S. Army 100% disabled veteran, and I vehemently oppose any and all gun control bills. These bills are directly going against not only the U.S. Constitution, but a state U.S. the Delaware State Constitution. And I'm not in favor of either. And I'm asking you to please reconsider. What we need to do is harden schools and take a look at what's going on with mental health. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
So next we have Bill Rounds, then Jeffrey Benyon, then Eric Beck, then Sherry Long.
Bill Rounds from Delmar, 7 miles south of Laurel, so I drove a little bit further than Tim did this morning. I would like to object to the fact that you're limiting this to 1 minute. I wrote a letter to the editor, edited about 3 hours down to enough that I thought Mr. McClure would actually publish it. And now I come here and I had a nice speech for 3 minutes and now it's 1. I'm going to use up most of it explaining about that. But anyhow, I taught hunter safety for 25 years. I know some 9-year-olds that would be responsible more so than some 35-year-olds that I have taught. And age is not, should not, and cannot be the answer to that cannot be the solution to what your problem is. You're going to have to get somewhere inside the people's minds and start punishing the criminals. Turning the people, finding them doing something wrong and just turning them loose on the street is not helping us at all. Gun-free zones. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Jeff Benyo, and I'm a parent and a grandparent and appreciate the attention of the committee. At 18, an adult should have the ability to defend themselves and their families. 18-year-olds can serve in the military and are expected to defend this country with their lives. But they don't have the opportunity to exercise those constitutional rights that we're discussing today. If the rational part of the brain doesn't develop until after 18 years of age, why would the government issue heavy weapons to 18-year-old to 20-year-olds? This really isn't common sense legislation. Thank you.
My name's Eric Beck, just for the record. I'm not affiliated with an organization, I guess, from that standpoint, like I hear a lot of people saying, but I am in support of common sense. And it seems like I'm reading through 450, and I'm definitely opposed to, especially starting at 45 through 47 line.
Sir, we're on House Bill 451.
Okay, well, then I'll go to 451. I was going to say, but I didn't know my times.
I'll give you another 10 seconds.
Well, then I already shot it. I just wanted, to stand in opposition of 451 as well. As we've been saying, you try to take these ideas of kids 18 years old or 21 years old not being able to defend their own house or defend their people. I get distracted by that.
Keep going.
I just think that we should take 451 and maybe modify it or look at a different way of it. It can't just be all encompassing of an 18-year-old not being able to defend themselves. I think that there's common sense that can be used in that, and we should find a way to come together on that.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So after Sherry Long, we're going to have Paul Johnston, then Tracy Johnston, then Carol Boone.
We, the people, in order to establish justice and ensure domestic tranquility. I'm the people. Hi, my name is Sherry Long. And there's a quote that I've come to love, and I think it's appropriate here. There comes a point in which we need to stop just pulling people out of the river. We need to go upstream and we need to find out where they're falling in. I think we have a problem with where they're falling in at this point in time. And I think that we're not addressing what the real problem is. So we're putting a Band-Aid on the broken leg. I know something about broken legs. I do it. Pretty good at it, actually. I could be a linebacker by now. But I have to tell you this much. We have decided that we're going to remove our ability to protect ourselves and make ourselves victims. I'm a survivor. I refuse to ever be a victim again. My daughter's a teacher. I do not want my daughter to ever be a victim. I do not want her classroom to ever be a victim. And I can assure you this much, that every single time we have a small election, our doors are wide open for anyone to walk into.
Thank you.
The doors are not locked. They're not closed. Our people
Please
are
take it
open
down a
wide.
notch.
My name is Paul Johnson. I'm a disabled vet from Desert Storm. Now, you're trying to take an age limit to our kids and to make sure that we are unable to defend ourselves. When I was in that war, I got to watch the males that were over 18 executed by the enemy. Then I got to watch the children of them, some of them as young as 10 years old, sitting there with their AK-47s, their HKs 93s, and they're out there defending their families. We are here because of our families are worried about their safety. And here you are trying to disarm us. Right now, you're violating your oath of office to protect the Constitution, state and federal. If you continue this, I'm going to ask, the same as every other veteran, that you step down from your position because you have now violated the Constitution and the oath of office that you have swore to protect. And I am serious about this. You guys have violated your oath of office.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Tracy Johnson, and I am a citizen of Delaware, not a volunteer. I speak for myself and my family. I oppose HB 451. I ask you all to reread lines 5 and 6 over and over again. I ask each one of you this: if boys and girls can't make decisions at 18 to 21, how can they make decisions on things like voting or changing their gender? I have been trained in firearms since I was 6 years old by my father, when he took me to a dude ranch in Pennsylvania to shoot BB guns at little tiny tin cans. Are you telling me? So at 19 years old, I was engaged to that man back there, the disabled veteran. At 20, I was married. Are you telling me that I couldn't defend myself when my husband was in the hospital coming home from Desert Storm? I oppose it, and I please don't let this go out of committee.
So after Carol Boone, we're going to have Bill Sharp, then Dee Taylor, and I believe this is Carlotta Klein, my apologies. It's in cursive. There we go.
Hello, my name's Carol Boone. I'm gonna read you a little something here concerning what's going on today. U.S. versus Miller, 230 F2D 486. It is unconstitutional to try to convert a crime. So in other words, this liberty that they're trying to take from you right now is a crime. They should be held responsible, and they can be held responsible. They work for you, you don't work for them. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Bill Sharp. Thank you very much for letting me speak today. I believe this legislation was born out of the fruit of the poisonous tree because the representatives had to violate their oath of office and perjure themselves against the protection of the Constitution of this nation. Also, this legislation is also like being charged with, lost my train of thought there for a second, double jeopardy by proxy. Someone else commits a crime and you want to take our rights off of us. What's up with this? We didn't do anything. No one here shot up any schools. We're here to defend our rights. I also passed out to every legislator the laws here from the Supreme Court that says you can't do what you're doing. You'll be violating Supreme Court law. Every one of you got a copy of this. Thank you very much for having me here today.
So next we have Detailer, then Ms. Klein, then Steel Stinger, then Rich Bishop.
Hello, I'm Dee Taylor. I live in Newark, Delaware. I've been a citizen of Delaware since 1987, moving from the great state of Nebraska. And I just want to say that I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I'm a nurse. I don't know if I said that already, a little nervous, of 33 years, that I have to come here to defend my constitutional right in living in this country as a citizen in the state of Delaware to be able to own a gun, or somebody that is younger than me, you're basing it on age when it has nothing to do, these crimes committed with guns have nothing to do with age. It's what it is, the person that pulls the trigger that needs to be punished, not law-abiding citizens that have guns, no matter what age they are, because they are irresponsible people no matter how old they are or young they are. And as we all know, and I think we can all agree, criminals do not obey laws. Thank you very much. And I hope everybody takes this serious enough that's here opposing this bill.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We will have legal representation.
Hi, I'm Carlotta Klein, a native Delawarean. My husband, who is deceased, said a long time ago, you don't take a knife to a gunfight. So this is food for thought. The Mad Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, actually target the drunk drivers. Duh. While your moms demand action, choose the gun. Airlines, when they had terrorists secure the cockpits, we should secure air schools. You'll never legislate evil. Evil will come forever. Family is what we have. Everybody knows that the destruction of the family causes the problems that we have in our society. I think I'm done early. Thank you.
So next we have Steel Stinger and then Rich Bishop.
Sir, what's your name? Come on in.
My name is Rich Bishop, formerly from Wilmington, Delaware, now Smyrna. I'm here today to oppose HB 451 on behalf of my three children, Richie, Jude, and Maddie. I believe that they should have the right to purchase firearms of their choice when they become of legal age at an adult at age 18. Age 18 is not a child, regardless of what some witnesses or speakers have said here today. 25 is not a child. This bill is in violation of the Delaware State Constitution. Article 1, Section 20, a person has the right to keep and bear arms for defense of self, family, home, and state, and for hunting and recreational use. At what age does a person become a person, according to this Constitution? That's my question I'd have for the members of this body and those of you who are in support of this bill. We've experienced gun violence. July 2014, when we lived in Wilmington, before Jude was born, a bullet went through our bedroom window while me and my two older children were in it. So I know where gun violence victims come from. I empathize with you, but I ask you not to take rights away from innocent people for the actions of criminals. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Madam Chair, that concludes the public comment that has been signed up for House Bill 451 in person.
I signed up for the comments, and I'm not being allowed to speak.
Okay. Oh, come forward. I'm sorry, sir. Come forward if you were supposed to be on, and I'll let you speak.
My name is Eshet Alston. I represent 777 Paralegal Services of Dover, Delaware. Reactionary overreach. Reactionary overreach is when you are not dealing with the problem. The problem is white supremacy racism. That's what the problem is. There were black people killed going to a grocery store. Where's your committee for race? Where's your committee for the people?
Could you keep it down? I mean, we can hear you, so just take it down a
Well,
level.
give me more time if you're going to stop me. So I'm here because we, the people of color, look at this forum. 10% of the population. Do you see 20 black people in here? We're not focusing on the problem. The problem is race and racism. These people were killed in the grocery store because they were black. He went out of his way to kill them because they were black. When are we going to have a committee meeting for black people?
Sir.
We're going to have a meeting like this for race and racism. When are we going to have a meeting like this for targeted people like me? I wasn't even on your list. I stood in here.
Sir, that's enough.
I'm a veteran from Dover Air Force Base. I stood here on.
Your time is gone. Capitol Police, I'm asking you to step aside now.
Cut me off.
I've given everybody the equal amount of time, and I appreciate your time.
I don't appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
We have time for one more. Come forward.
Thank you. My name is Carolyn Collins, and I drove here from New York because I found this important enough. And I'm here to talk about the bill 450 and 451. I wanted to educate everybody that anybody in government office that is not serving the people, they have bonds and you can go after them. So look up bonds for the win. BONDS for the win. Also, there is a law that states that the Maybury versus Madison, that the government, if they institute any laws that are against the Constitution, they are not constitutional. They cannot do that. So I just want you to keep, firm in your faith and know that you do have the right to bear arms. Y'all do not have the right to take that away from anybody. God bless you.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to go back to the committee because we want to get on to House Bill 450. What's the pleasure of the committee?
I've got a couple questions.
Yeah, go ahead. Representative Short.
We have a number of attorneys in the room, so I'd like to ask the question of reference to the firearm definition.
Who would you like to answer that?
Well, we do have an expert in the audience, Francis Pileggi, if you'd like to use him. He's an attorney.
Who is it?
Francis Pileggi. Who's that? Is he here? I saw him here some earlier.
Might be outside.
Well, we got two House attorneys sitting right here.
We'll use Ron Smith. You want to come to the podium, our attorney? He's on Zoom. We don't even have Zoom. The reason we don't have Zoom?
So.
Ask if he's on the phone. Hi, excuse me, is Mr. Pileggi on the phone?
Yes, let me get him unmuted for you.
Okay, thank you.
Here you go.
Mr.
I don't think it's on video.
Thank you.
Mr. Pileggi, this is.
Would you like me to speak now?
I have a couple questions for you. This is Representative Danny Short. Glad you could join us today.
Oh, thank you.
Question for you is, can you define in the Delaware law the definition of a firearm? It's used multiple times in both 450 and 451. I think we need to clear that up, and we have been trying for years to clean that definition up because it has a varying aspect, and I hear a lot of things. Can you define firearm for us in the state?
Well, thank you for the question, Representative. There are many different definitions of firearm and definitions of different types of firearm. For example, I know House Bill 450 goes into great detail, but we're talking about House Bill 451 now, and even House Bill 451 refers to different statutory definitions. For example, there's a statutory definition for a shotgun. There's a definition for a muzzle-loading rifle. So the short answer to your question, Representative, is there are many different definitions of firearms, and they are very specific to different types of firearms. So,
well, I'll ask you.
Short answer to your,
I'll ask another.
Your question. It would take me a long time to go through all the definitions in the Delaware Code for all the different types of firearms.
All right, well, I'll ask you another question that keeps coming up. Is a nail gun a firearm in the state of Delaware?
I'm sorry, Representative, I couldn't hear the
Is a nail gun used in the construction of residential property, commercial property, a nail gun, a firearm in the state of Delaware?
I'd like the chance to double check, but off the top of my head, I would think the answer is no.
Okay, thank you. Can you tell me when the right to bear arms was passed in the state of Delaware in the Constitution?
1987. In 1987, by supermajorities of 2 successive General Assemblies, Article 1, Section 20 was added to the Delaware Constitution, which is far broader than the Second Amendment and specifically protects the right to use firearms for recreation and for hunting, in addition to protecting one's family and oneself.
And just so everybody's clear, can you just give us like a 30-second on your background and, your expertise in this field?
Yes, I have argued and won all of the reported court decisions in Delaware that have addressed directly the scope of the right to bear arms under the Delaware Constitution outside the home, which is more than any other Delaware lawyer. I also served as an attorney for the Democratic caucus of the Delaware House of Representatives in the 1990s.
Thank you. And can you tell me, based upon the question that I asked you before about the passage of the Constitution, what did it state about 18-year-olds in that?
In 1987, when the Article 1, Section 20 of the Delaware Constitution was passed, the Delaware statute at the time, specifically Section 701 of Title I of the Delaware Code, provided that any person 18 years of age or older would have the same rights and responsibilities and legal capacity as any person aged 21 or older. And that statute was in existence when the constitutional provision was passed, and the law presumes that the legislators know what the existing law is when they pass a law. So the legislators who passed that Article 1, Section 20 knew when they were expressly protecting the right to bear arms for hunting and recreation that it applied to 18-year-olds who the Delaware Code gives the right of full age. And Section 302 of Title I of the Delaware Code also defines someone 18 years old as being of full age and having all the rights of a person who, prior to that passage in 1972, prior to that date, was only available to 21-year-olds.
And are you aware of any U.S. Supreme Court decisions with regard to the restriction of age 21 and under?
There are several United States Supreme Court decisions that I think are applicable here. There was one U.S. Supreme Court decision in Craig, C-R-A-I-G versus Boren, B-O-R-E-N, that found unconstitutional a restriction on the sale of beer, and specifically because the purpose of the law was to reduce drunk driving for those persons between the age of 18 and 21. And the reasoning of the court was that it restricted the rights of all persons age 18 to 21, even though only a minority of persons in that age range were responsible for the activity that was sought to be restricted. The constitutional test for laws is whether or not they are overly broad and whether the harm sought to be remedied by the law is a reasonable fit to achieve the government's goal, or if it, to use a colloquial term, paints with too broad of a brush.
And that applies to 451, would you say?
Yes, in my view, that would apply to 451. In addition to the reasons that I previously mentioned about when the constitutional provision in Delaware was passed in 1987, it was passed when the legislators knew that the Delaware Code gave the rights of adulthood to those aged 18.
Thank you. I appreciate you being on the line. Sorry we don't have a video of you, but I appreciate you answering my questions, and thank you for participating
Thank you.
today. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Representative Schwartzkopf.
Just got a couple comments to make to the crowd here. Most of the comments, or a lot of the comments, were about school safety. But not all mass shootings happen in school. So Do I believe that we should put more into school? Yes. Do we have a measure that we're going to do and vote on this year? Yes, we do. But I look at the problem of mass shootings as a multi-pronged approach. There are some states out there, and I just saw a video a couple days ago from Virginia, where a 13-year-old boy, they took him out, they walked him in a store to buy beer, he was denied. They took him to buy cigarettes in another store, he was denied. They took him to another store to buy racing magazines, he was denied because he's only 13 years old. And on video, he walked into a gun show in Virginia and paid $130, I think it was, and bought a .22 rifle, no questions asked, and he walked out of the place with the rifle in his hand. We're not in that position.
Any other outbursts, I will have you removed.
We're not in that position because we have taken measures. We have put school safety, we have a safe school fund that we put money in. Danny, Representative Short was actively involved in getting that legislation passed. We put money in it. We put $5 million in it. They spent $4.5 million of that $5 million. We are prepared to put another $10 million in to help fortify these schools. We have passed mental health pieces of legislation to try to address this situation. We have passed red flag bills. In my last conversation with somebody in the know, I think it was 76 people have been redirected, let's say, redirected because of those red flag bills. So they work. These things do work. We've passed universal background checks. We've passed private sale background checks. And we closed the Charleston loophole. So we have done a lot of things to try to stem mass shootings. I will say this. Somebody said that, we're taking guns away from kids because of bad people, criminals with guns. As far as I know, the shooter in Texas and the shooter in Buffalo weren't criminals until they pulled that damn trigger. When they pulled that trigger, they became the worst people on this earth. I will tell you also that the people in Uvalde right now wish the hell they had an 18 to 21 year law in their state to prevent that knucklehead from doing what he did. He tried to get a gun before he turned 18. Tried to get his sister to go buy him one. She told him no. So he waited till he turned 18. And he went and bought not one, but two AR-15s, 375 rounds of ammunition. He wouldn't have been able to do that if this law had been in place. People say we're taking away your rights. I disagree with you. I'll sit here and look you right in the eye. I'll disagree with you. The Heller decision from the Supreme Court states that, like most rights, the Second Amendment right is not unlimited. It is not a right to keep and carry any weapon whatsoever, in any manner whatsoever, and for whatever purpose. It does give the rights to the states to put things in place. And some states have gone too far. Some states haven't. But I will tell you this, we don't have a court decision in our state. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's time we have a court decision, a ruling on the assault weapons bill and this bill. Instead of all of us wannabe lawyers, including me, sitting around saying it's unconstitutional.
It is.
It's not unconstitutional. See, there you go. It is. Are you a lawyer? Are you a lawyer?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so.
Okay, no, stop right here. We are not going to have any outbursts. So I'm going to ask you to leave.
I'm leaving.
Good.
Walk out.
The point is that there are two sides to this argument, and neither one of us know which one's right. You think you're right, I think I'm right. It doesn't make you a bad person, doesn't make me a bad person. I'm trying to put something in place in our state that will protect our kids and protect the people of our state. I'm elected to do things for the good of our state, to protect our state. If I sit here and do nothing, if we do nothing after watching Texas, if we do nothing, my daughter's a school teacher. I got grandkids in school. I'm telling you, if we do nothing and somebody goes and buys a gun at the age of 18 or 19 and does something horrible, I wouldn't be able to live with myself.
It's the pleasure of the committee. Representative Mitchell.
Madam Chair, just a brief comment before I make a motion. I'd like to thank Representative Schwarzkopf for bringing this forth today. As I sat here and listened to the comments and read the bill, there's clearly exemptions in the bill to continue to allow for the possession of firearms. There's also exemptions for persons under the age of 21 to continue to possess firearms while under supervision. So I think it's a bill when we talk about safety, we talk about individual rights. I think we're accomplishing that in this bill. With that being said, I'd make a motion to release House Bill 450.
I second that motion. So therefore, I'll go to roll call. Representative Dukes.
No.
Representative Longhurst, yes. Representative Mitchell.
Yes.
Representative Schwarzkopf.
Yes.
Representative Short.
No.
Okay, having received the required number of votes, the motion is carried. House Bill 451 has been released from committee. Now we're moving on to House Bill 450. So House Bill 450. The intention of this legislation is simple and clear. It is.
You can lower Mr.
Am I hearing voices? Can you turn off the audio? Okay. The intention of this legislation is simple and clear. To make sure that the next Uvalde, the next Buffalo, the next Sandy Hook does not take place in the state of Delaware. It's to make sure in Delaware, it is against the law to obtain the kind of weapons that can inflict this level of carnage and devastation. Highly lethal weapons with the origin in the field of military combat, which have ended up in our schools and our shopping malls. The shooter at Robb Elementary School had an AR-15 style semi-automatic rifle. The shooters in Buffalo, El Paso, Parkland, Las Vegas, and Sandy Hook were also armed with semi-automatic assault-style weapons that would be prohibited by this bill. Both the Second Amendment and the Delaware Constitution upholds the right to keep and bear arms. But that does not mean that there is no role for the state in enacting common sense limitations in the case on the availability of weapons that were designed for military application and not for traditional defense, hunting, or sporting events. A standard AR-15 comes with a 30-round magazine, can fire about 45 rounds per minute, or as fast as a finger could pull the trigger, and is deadly accurate from more than 550 yards with little practice and the right optics. A majority of Americans support common sense gun regulations like this bill. A CBS News poll taken just last week found that 62% of Americans support a nationwide discontinue of an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle and similar guns. And the data supports this measure. Assault weapons have been used in 7 of the deadliest mass shootings in the last decade. An analysis of public mass shootings resulting in 4 or more deaths found that more than 85% of such fatalities were caused by assault rifles. An assailant with an assault rifle is able to hurt and kill twice the number of people compared to the assault with no assault rifle or handgun. House Bill 450 is just one piece of the puzzle. We have been working together for the last several years. We have worked to address mental health in our schools and communities. We've enacted red flag laws to identify those who should not be allowed to obtain weapons. We've dedicated millions of dollars to make sure our school buildings are safer and more secure. We've reduced the heinous lethality of firearms in our state by banning bump stocks and other devices. But itself, this bill does not solve the problem, and I admit it doesn't solve the problem of gun violence. But taken together With our broader efforts, we can keep the families and children of Delaware safe from the horror of mass shooting. As I said, I truly believe this is a puzzle piece. It's not one solution to gun violence, it's several. And as Representative Duke said earlier, yes, and Representative Short, yes, gun safety is important in the schools. And like Representative Schwarzkopf said, we put $5 million in. It's been used at 5.4 million, or 4.5 million has been used so far. I talked to the superintendent of Appoquinimink School District and I said to him, what do the superintendents need to feel safe? And they said, give us at least $10 million. And Representative Hensley and myself have been working to make sure that we get the $10 million put in for safer schools. We also know we need more constables and SROs. They're not just an asset to be there for protection, but they also provide mental health crisis for some of our children. And I've seen it firsthand how SROs and constables work directly with children to diffuse any of the situations that happen in the school. So yes, it is a part of the solution, but so is this bill. And I have to say it was, I wasn't involved in very many of these gun pieces of legislation until Sandy Hook. Sandy Hook was probably the turning point of where I turned my focus in this legislature. And it's because of so many children that were killed with an assault rifle. Yes, we can't determine what that young man did. You know, he didn't have the assault rifle, but his parent, his mom did. But like, what I can't imagine is, I have 2 children myself. When I dropped my son off at preschool, he clung to my leg and held onto my leg and did not want me to leave him in the school just because he felt more comfortable with me. And I had to pry him off me with the teacher. She took him, I went out to my car and cried for 2 hours, came back and picked him up 2 hours later. He jumped into my arms for probably about 50 yards and he wrapped his arms around me, his legs around me, and I could literally have my hands out like this and not have to hold him because he clung to me so tight. The next day, I take him back to school. Same thing. He's holding on to my leg for dear life. I pry him off. The teacher takes him. I leave. Of course, I cry. I come back 2 hours later, same response. He jumps into my arms, holds on to me for dear life, and we go to the car. This happened for almost a week straight. Every day was the same. And it got to the point I couldn't even get him in the car. But it wasn't because he didn't feel safe. It's just that he wanted to be with me and he wanted to feel comfort that I was going to be there to pick him up. And every day I picked him up. And every day he wrapped his arms around me. I can't for the life of me, understand how somebody can go into a school and shoot up a child. My son knew that I was coming back for him. These children thought they were going home after they got their awards. They did not come home, but not only did they not come home, they couldn't even identify the children. And yes, it does upset me as a mother. And as a legislator, we have 3 branches of government. We have the legislative who drafts bills. We have the executive who will sign it into law. And then we have the judiciary who interprets the law. And that's the process. Whether you think it's constitutional or not, we go through that process, and that's what this process will be. So with that being said, let me just talk a little bit about the bill. What this bill does is this legislation will create a discontinuation on assault weapons that meet either a certain model type or meet a certain defined feature in the state of Delaware. There will be a prohibition on the manufacture, sale, transfer, or possession of an assault weapon within the state of Delaware unless you meet certain exemptions and additional requirements have been placed on those who are exempted around the transfer and possession. This legislation will also create a system where someone who possesses an assault weapon prior to this legislation enactment day receive a voluntary certificate of possession from the State Department of Safety and Homeland Security and will protect the owner of the prosecution for their possession. The department will not maintain these records at all, so it's not considered a registry. Prohibition of the manufacture, sale, offer to sell, transfer, purchase, receipt, possession, or transfer of an assault weapon in Delaware, subject to certain exceptions. The assault weapons definition, which is a specific model and make, including copies regardless or producer of a manufacturer, includes assault long guns, assault pistols, and certain models of assault shotguns, and all copycats. The definition of an assault weapon: semi-automatic rifle that can accept a detachable magazine, has any two of the following: a folding stock, a grenade flare launcher, a flash suppressor, a pistol grip. Semi-automatic rifles with a fixed magazine that can accept more than 10 rounds. Semi-automatic rifle with an overall length of less than 29 inches. Semi-automatic pistol with a fixed magazine that can accept more than 10 rounds. A semi-automatic shotgun with a folding stock, and a shotgun with a revolving cylinder. And if I can add, there are some exemptions in the bill, and I can go over them later if you'd like. But this is not taking away your gun. It's discontinuing the assault rifle or the lethal weapon in the state of Delaware. So with that, I'll open up to the committee for questions. Representative Short.
Thank you. Do we have anybody from the court here as a witness or, yeah?
For the judiciary branch of government?
Yeah, that'd be great.
I do not have anybody from the judiciary branch of government.
So yeah, I want to go back to the issue of expediency and trying to get something done. I agree with you. I appreciate your testimony. And as you probably already realize, I'm very sympathetic to the turmoil that you've gone through with the experience you just mentioned. Okay, so just one attorney, if we can answer the question. So what we know is going to happen, I'm come from the world that we kind of prioritize, we kind of look at what we can get done. We look at the issues of where we can go to make the biggest impact, and how we can check the box to say that this box is something we've completed. So what we do know, what I know, is that as we laid out, the minute testimony happens today. Everybody here will go home. The bill will be on the agenda tomorrow, and it will get passed. Because the votes are there. I'm a realist, in this situation. And then after that, the lawsuit will come. So the question for me, for an attorney, if anyone can answer this, and maybe call the witness I had earlier, how long is this going to take to come to the decision? When will the court case be on the docket? When will the attorneys gather? How long will they have time to put their case together and put their witnesses together? And when will actually someone set a court date? Can anybody answer that question?
I don't know if we could set a court date where the legislative body. So I'm not really.
I know that. That's my point. I don't know what the mechanism and how long it took.
I mean, I do know that there's 8 other states that have this law already currently in place.
That's not my point. The point is there's going to be a lawsuit and things will kind of just halt, come to a stop, and things will be messed up. It'll just be a mess. We're waiting for a court decision and all that. There'll be challenges to this, and people will divide themselves, and the attorneys will arm up, and money will be raised, and that sort of thing will happen. So I don't know, Mr. Smith, I mean, you've been here, your attorney, how long do you suspect? What either one of we have 2 attorneys. I see one over here. I see one over there. I know your attorneys. We have Mr. Pileggi on the line.
Karen,
I'd just like to know what the thought process is before we get to final resolution. Does the bill get stalled in the meantime? Does the court take into effect and arrest people, put them in jail, and and then there's a court decision? I don't know. I'm trying to figure this thing out. So I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to be a realist here and say, what are we really going to get done? Because guess what? I've heard it over and over again, quote unquote, we got to do something. And we're trying to do something here today, but I'm thinking we're not going to do much at the end of the day tomorrow. So if you could answer that question, that'd be great. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Representative Short. Karen Lance, House Attorney. So I cannot answer your question with great specificity because I cannot presume to speak for the court. I can tell you that the most likely route for a case like this would be either to challenge it under the Delaware Constitution in the state courts, or to challenge it under the federal Second Amendment in the federal courts, where I think Representative Longhurst mentioned that similar laws have been upheld in the federal courts. But regardless, the time that it takes a case to get from filing to conclusion varies depending on the complexity of the case, on the court's backlog. A plaintiff could file for a temporary injunction to stop the law from going into effect based on the fact that they allege that it is unconstitutional. And then the court has a factor test that it uses to decide whether to grant that injunction or not. Based on my analysis, I do not believe the court would grant such an injunction, but I just said that it is not a good idea for me to predict what the court would do. But in any event, it would be clear, based on whether the court granted an injunction or not, whether the law would take effect or be held, be enjoined pending further decisions. I hope that that helps.
It does. So I'm going to ask the other attorney. Do you agree with this attorney, Can I have Ron Smith?
Ron Smith, House Attorney. I would agree with basically what Ms. Lance stated. It would probably take a year or more to go through the state court system, to go through the different levels of court. It's always possible that the governor might ask for an advisory opinion. I don't know whether they would give it in that set of circumstances. That might expedite some aspect of it. If it goes through the entire court system, then it's a question of who the plaintiff party would be, whether they would have appropriate standing to present the arguments in that particular case. So it would be fact driven. But I would say clearly it will take a year or two. And the only thing that would stop the law would be a temporary injunction delaying its impact. Otherwise, it would go into effect as soon as it became law from enactment.
And then coincidentally, there could be a subsequent another case, could there not be? If let's suppose the situation evolves that the case is lost by that bring the suit, then they could appeal?
Yes.
And that takes another couple of years, I guess. Okay. So I'm going to just make this statement, Madam Chair, if you don't mind. I got one of these, and I'm going to go back where I was. Does that mean I'm done there?
I'll let you go. I'll let you slide.
The bell went off, so a little humor in the hearing here. So I've got one of these. So for everybody knows, I'm big on this school thing, and I'm just thinking 10 million is not enough. I'm going to lobby, take this opportunity. I think it needs to be 100 billion. I've said it. We've got the money we need. If we want to do something, we can do this now. This key card gets me in the back door. The green light comes on, I can open the door. Guess what? I got to use this card to get out of this building too. And I appreciate these guys in the uniform over there. I respect them a whole lot. They're great. Our Capitol Police are, fantastic, as well as all our guys and gals in blue. To get out, I got to use it. And if I don't, he comes and gets me. So what are you doing violating the code here? We need to implement things like this uniformly in our schools. That's what we can do immediately. This is a bill that's, as I mentioned before, you saw the testimony. It's going to continue. We're going to hear the same things. It's going to divide us. We're not going to end of the day get much done. This bill will pass tomorrow. I'm confident that the votes are there. We know it's going to go over to the Senate. It's in the press release, if you read the governor's press release. So there's going to be litigation. And at the end of the day, with the amount of money that we've got, and it's already been conceded here, and I appreciate your support of the safety program that was mentioned earlier in the school safety, and I agree with it wholeheartedly. So what I'm saying is we need to give all the teachers and folks in education one of these. And the building would be secure, and you couldn't prop it open with a stone because one of those guys in the uniform is going to find out why that stone's in the door. That's what would happen here if we did that. So why aren't the schools the same way? And I just think right now we need to be expedient about what we want to do, what we want to solve. And this is not going to do it here today. We'll be talking about this for years. So that's just where I am.
I agree with you, Representative Short, and I know Representative Hensley and I have been working to try to get the money funded. If it needs to be more, I mean, I know the superintendents asked for 10. They thought that that would be sufficient. And maybe it's just an ongoing fund that we just continue on there and have the support of both Democrats and Republicans on there to understand that we do need to protect our schools, and every piece of this puzzle that we do is all we working together to save our or to protect our schools and the citizens of Delaware. So if you want to talk about, you know, adding more money to it, I'm sure that between the bond bill, we can figure that out. If there are any questions, I'll go to public comment. Representative Dukes.
Madam Chair, I just want to respond to the one issue of mental health. The shooter in Texas had gained the nickname on social media, school shooter, because of his post, because of the things that that he had said, some of his previous actions of things that he had done. I guess my concern is, and it's been said here many times, and I agree with this to an extent, that we've got to do something. But we can do something, it doesn't mean that we're doing the right thing. I wish, looking forward, I wish I could tell everybody in this room what the right thing is to do. I know we all have our opinions. I wish I had the foresight in looking at the future that the five of us up here, that we could make a decision and we would know it would be absolutely foolproof. I wish to God I had that knowledge. We do have a terrible mental health crisis in our country. But I think just doing a gun grab, we take a risk of not protecting ourselves. I have a report here from the Statistical Analysis Center. And this is one of the things that really concerns me when we talk about gun bills in Delaware. Over 80% of people that are arrested and a gun is involved, over 80% of it never gets charged. That's a problem in our state when we are not prosecuting gun charges. That's a serious, serious problem. And before we start taking guns away, we've got to prosecute criminals for gun violations. And I think that's one way that we make a real stab at this. Madam Chair, I do have a couple questions. Where did the list, I counted, if I'm correct, 66 guns that are listed. Where did this list come from?
So thank you. I've modeled it from the state of Maryland.
I'm sure that you've probably been told by now that some of these guns that are listed here are not even manufactured anymore. In fact, I believe that the state of Maryland got this list from the 1993 Clinton gun ban. I just wish we had done a little more due diligence in what we're putting up here. I think we rush into things sometimes because we want to get something done so desperately that we don't do our due diligence in doing it correctly. I don't have any more comments at this time.
Representative Dukes and Representative Short, you and we passed House Bill 100 last year, which was a mental health bill for reducing the ratios of students to school counselors and psychologists, and it passed unanimously in both chambers. It took me 3 years to get that bill through, And I visited both your schools and your districts to talk to the teachers and everybody. I do have House Bill 300 that's sitting out there that should get funded. I've asked for it to be funded, and that will increase it to middle schools. There are several pieces to this puzzle. I wish I mean, it always comes down to funding, which is frustrating as get all. But 300 should pass this General Assembly so that we can catch that shooter that was in Texas. Everybody did know what his nickname was, but he had some mental health issues, obviously. You don't shoot your grandmother in the face and walk away and think that that's a normal behavior, especially with an assault rifle. So, you know, I do believe it's many prongs here, and I think we in the state have done an enormous amount of work on not just gun legislation, but mental health. We need to do more in school safety, and I think we need to continue doing that. I would love to go on, but I know we have public that wants to speak, and I really want to give you that opportunity.
I just want to make it clear, though, I appreciate all that work, and you and I went to the school in Seaford together, and it's a sad situation, and even the school in my district. So I think you're exactly right. I think we need to work on the things that we can work on together, and I think this is going to divide us. I think there's no doubt there's going to be a lawsuit at the end of the day. What we talked about, I hope there's no hard feelings at all with regard to the things that we can collectively come together on and fund and help each other with. Your mental health, my school safety, I think it's ours, not mine or yours. So agree with you. Thank you.
And just for the record, yeah, we get along in the House. We get along with the Republicans and Democrats. We're friends. We have a philosophical difference, which is very upsetting. I can tell you that this wasn't easy over a couple week for me, you know, knowing that, Timmy, I'm working on some things with you, and, you know, it's tough to sit here with both of you, knowing where you strongly believe. And, you know, we have strong beliefs too, and it's challenging. That's what makes the debate a little bit more personal. So yeah, it's difficult for all of us. So let's go to public comment.
So first up, we have Sean Haaland, and then Alan Jester, then Mara Gorman, then Brent Burge.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Sean Holohan, and I work with Giffords, the gun violence prevention organization founded by former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords. We're here today to strongly support HB 450 and HB 451 because we see these bills as part of a multi-pronged approach to slow down and stop gun violence from happening in communities across our country. Mental health, background checks, school safety, slowing down the distribution of military-style weapons, and ensuring those who plan to break the law have a harder time to do so. These are all common sense solutions that a large majority of our country supports. 69% of Americans, including 50% of self-identified Republicans, in a USA Today poll done just this month. And we all call upon those looking to make our communities safer to join them. Thank you today for taking up these bills.
My name is Alan Jester, and I oppose both of these bills. I know it's too late for 450. I'm a practicing Christian. I know that God is going to allow Jesus to judge the living and the dead, and I believe you guys will be held responsible for your actions, your predecessors and the ones that follow. You guys make laws and rules that most of us don't listen to until we're, quote unquote, caught. You divide our families. I believe that you guys don't care about us. You want to compost our bodies, throw them out in fields. Not all of you, but there were some. You want to kill us before we're born. I don't know if you have a solution for the baby formula problem, the gas problem.
Let's stick to the legislation, please.
Well, my point is that, I don't trust the assembly. You said that this is not a gun registry. No, this probably is not a gun registry. The next version of the bill will probably be a gun registry. Like I said, I don't trust you guys.
Thank you.
So next up, we have Mara Gorman, then Brent Burge, then Megan O'Donnell, then Denise Glendenning.
My name is Mara Gorman, and I'm the volunteer state chapter lead for Moms Demand Action in Delaware, which has attracted 800 new local volunteers in the past 2 weeks. I support releasing HB 450 from committee. I'm here because I'm tired and angry. Tired of reading stories about children and teachers being murdered in their classrooms, shoppers being murdered in their supermarkets, parishioners being murdered in their churches. Angry at the ease with which so-called assault weapons, firearms designed to kill quickly, efficiently, and en masse, are available in our state. Passing this bill in Delaware will save lives. Research shows that restrictions on assault weapons can help prevent mass shooting injuries and fatalities. I attended a variety of public events across the state over the past weekend wearing my Moms Demand Action shirt, and I quickly lost count of the number of people who came up to me and asked when we are going to do something to get rid of these weapons of war. I told them that I hoped the time was now, but it's up to you to act. I urge you to release HB 450. Thank you very much.
My name is Brent Burge. I live in Wilmington. This bill is an embarrassment to this body. It's politically motivated by recent tragic events. And the response is to trot out a tired rehash of Maryland law that has failed in this body several times before. This measure is unconstitutional and will serve to limit the self-defense options of Delaware citizens, especially young adults who do not yet qualify for purchase, and women for whom this platform is well suited and effective. The AR-15 is not a military weapon in common use by any military in the world, and it's clearly covered by the Supreme Court protections articulated in Heller as a firearm in common use. There are currently 15 to 20 million of these firearms in the legal possession and use of citizens. There is increasing urgency behind this bill because of the constant misapplication of the term mass shooting. I would appreciate that you use a proper definition of that term.
Thank you. So next we have Megan O'Donnell, then Denise Glendenning, then Karen Riordan, then Aaron Cronister.
Thank you. My name is Megan O'Donnell, and I'm here in support of HB 450. I know AR doesn't stand for assault rifle. I know many good gun owners, and I married one. I know bad people will continue to do bad things, and I know that there is no single solution to eliminating gun violence in Delaware. But I also know what it feels like to be shot at by one of these guns. I know how the ground vibrates around you, how high-capacity magazines allow someone bent on destruction to continue to fire while you run for your life. I know that nothing is ever the same again. Like your dream, it's my reality. So when you realize that someone legally brought this arsenal of guns that could have killed you, it changes everything. Mostly, I know that I'm no expert on guns, but I'm an expert in surviving gun violence, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I know that none of these people, even those who carry responsibly like my husband, could have protected me or the 58 people murdered around me in Las Vegas because these guns allowed them to fire from across the street, 30 stories up, sheltered by a large amount of space. Please vote yes on HB 450 today.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Denise Glendenning. I would like to say you continue to give false information concerning AR-15s. They were never used in the military. They were never designed for the military. They stand for Armalite rifle, not assault rifle. We happen to have 4 in our home and have no intention of not using them. They're very easy for a woman to use especially. By this also ban here, my Kel-Tec 9mm, which is very easy to handle, would also be banned. And that's a 9mm, not the scary AR that you're speaking of. AR rifles were not used in the Parkland shooting. They were 10-round mags with a handgun that he was able to exchange. Unless you're going to change the US Constitution or the Delaware Constitution, I do not have to be a lawyer to stand up in here and tell you that these bills are absolutely unconstitutional. We do have brains and we do think with them. And you really need to do the right thing. You started a lot of crap here. Very nasty of you.
Keep your language appropriate.
You don't.
Excuse. So let me just make it perfectly clear is that this isn't a ban, it's a discontinuation. So people that currently have these weapons get to keep them. It's just that you will not be able to purchase going forward once it's enacted into law. Okay, we're going to continue on.
So next we have Karen Riordan, then Aaron Cronister, then Charles Cohen, then Clint Brothers.
My name is Karen Riordan, and I am a lead for the Newark chapter of Moms Demand Action. I too support releasing HB 450 from committee. Moms Demand Action supports the Second Amendment and is for common sense gun laws to keep our communities and our children safe. The Second Amendment does not say anything about one's right to own an assault weapon. These are weapons of war. The Second Amendment, like all rights in the Constitution, is not without limits. The Supreme Court has reaffirmed this repeatedly. Why wouldn't those limitations include efforts to reduce mass homicides of children in schools? An overwhelming number of your constituents want you, our elected officials, to do something about this. The time to act is now. We can stop the killing, we can save lives, but we have to stop the bickering and work together. We have to do something before another assault weapons tragedy hits home in Delaware. Thank you for leading on this serious issue.
Clint Brothers, hello again. I really can't believe what I heard earlier, that our legislative branch is going to pass laws, whether they think they're constitutional or not. Just got to say that. But as to the effect of this bill, still one of the greatest tragedies, shootings that happened, Columbine was carried out under the federal assault weapons ban. So this is thoughts and prayers, is what it is. I do not believe it's going to affect anything. Again, can we please just pass laws that are constitutional and that are going to get to the effect of what's actually happening? Thank you.
So next we have Charles Cohen, then Thomas Cervic, thank you, and then Stevie Keeley.
Hello, I'm the Reverend Charles Cowen. I'm a priest of the Episcopal Church. I'm a mom, and I am asking you to release HB 450 from committee. I'm a priest serving in Wilmington, and I hear the gunshots every day. I've buried my parishioners who have died steps away from the church, and I have comforted families who are terrified to go to school, to go anywhere. People have been asking me over and over, why does God allow this to happen? And I've prayed on this, and God has said, why do we allow this to happen? We have the power to do something, and so I am begging you today. Gun homicide in Delaware is 1.25 times higher than the national average, and we know that when the assault bans were in effect, they were 70% less likely to occur. So in the name of God, in the name of Nation, my parishioner, in the name of all those who are trying to live full lives, I ask you to release this from committee. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Thomas Cervic. I'm from Newark, Delaware, and I support releasing House Bill 450 from committee. I'm here in Dover today because of the shooting in Uvalde. I'm a tutor. I work with elementary school students, so it hit especially close to home. Like events at Sandy Hook and Stoneman Douglas, the slaughter at Robb Elementary was characterized by the use of a semi-automatic weapon. These weapons facilitate mass shootings, and a ban on their sale will save the lives of Delawareans, including our state's youth. Listening to the excuses of those who attempt to blame the Uvalde shooting on reasons other than the ease of acquiring automatic weapons, I thought of the last words of Henry Vane, executed as a regicide of Charles I. Stymied in his attempts to make a speech on the scaffold by military drums, he remarked that it is a bad cause which cannot bear the words of a dying man. Worse still, in my opinion, is a cause that cannot bear the words of dying children. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Erin Cronister. I'm the Vice President for the Women's Defense Coalition. We had a lot of ladies here earlier today who just walked out a little bit disheartened about the last bill. So we're sitting here talking about, because criminals do this, we are going to do this. Because criminals do that, we are going to do that. That seems a little silly to me, that we are basing our rights off of what criminals are willing to take from us. So we're already getting taken from. So I have a child in the mental health system, and I can tell you that there's a major breakdown in the system. Anybody being taken in on a 72-hour hold is then required by law that the facility has to ask, do you want to be here involuntarily or do you want to be here voluntarily?
I don't know many people who pick involuntary. So what's happening is that the state of Delaware used to report those people, and then they could be flagged for firearm purchases. Currently, they're not being reported. All of these people who are being brought in for suicidal and homicidal ideations and violent behaviors and acts within the community are therefore being put back into the community as part of the reform.
Thank you. Your time has expired, ma'am. So next we have Stevie Keeley, then Janet Caruccio, then Jeff Haig, then Dennis Greenhouse.
Hi, my name is Stevie Keeley. I'm a resident in Wilmington, Delaware, and I will tell you right now, these list of guns that are on this bill, 2 of them stood ready to protect my family from a group of 15 to 20 individuals that tried to breach our steel door. They heeded the warning and they left. But had they made it through that steel door, you would have been looking at over 1,000 guns on the streets. We were told to protect those guns by all means necessary. That meant our long guns, our assault rifles, our whatever it is the term that you guys want to call them these days. The police could not be there. They could not get to us to save us from 15 to 20 people. They could not be there to save the streets from 1,000 guns. We had a place in Delaware that was robbed during the riots. 30-some guns out of there. Do not take away a person's ability to protect themselves and protect their property.
Thank you. Your time has expired.
Hi, my name is Janet Caruccio, and I'm a volunteer group lead for Moms Demand Action in Newark, Delaware. I support releasing HB 450 from committee. I'm very angry and frustrated that since Sandy Hook, we've done virtually nothing to stop these massacres. We're allowing anyone to buy these assault-type weapons that are designed purely to kill quickly, efficiently, and in large numbers. Passing this bill in Delaware will save lives. Research has shown that restrictions on assault weapons can help reduce mass shooting fatalities and injuries. Over the past few weeks, in direct reaction to the mass shootings that have occurred with these assault weapons, we have seen a huge surge in our membership. People are tired of watching children and community members get slaughtered. We know we have to do something. We must pass the bill as one step in building a safer community for the citizens of Delaware. I urge you to vote this bill out of committee. Thank you.
So next we'll have Jeff Haig, then Dennis Greenhouse, then John Brigby, then David Chen.
Good afternoon. I'm Jeff Haig, again, President of Delaware State Sportsman Association. I'd like to say that I represent probably 25,000 people, if you include the NRA members in the state of Delaware and all the gun clubs and members of DSSA. Again, my distress is that the cynicism that I'm feeling right now comes from the fact that a tragedy has been taken advantage of by certain people to make a political statement. That's not right. It shouldn't be done that way. Guy yesterday in Washington did something we should do. Matthew McConaughey, 20% on the right, 20% on the left. Throw them out. Get the 60% in the middle together and let's talk about some real solutions. It's not the rifles that are a problem. It's the city of Wilmington, state of Delaware. It's pistols. Ask any police officer. It's not the rifles. So let's get together and do something. I would love to be asked to participate instead of having to come up here and testify like this. Thank you.
Dennis Greenhouse, representing DCAF. I'd like to read part of a statement that was presented to the committee by Jerry Holt. Jerry Holt is from Newark. He's a retiree, an Air Force veteran, and a gun owner. Assault weapons are commonly owned and unfortunately used for their design purpose, to kill people. Make no mistake, an assault rifle is a weapon of war. It was designed for the sole purpose of killing. A sane civil society has no place for weapons of war to be possessed except under strict regulated conditions. Don't we all value a society that is safe for all, especially children? I strongly urge you to pass HB 450 to ban these killing machines. Thank you.
So next we have John Rigby, then David Chen, then Joseph Taylor, then Kelly Molesky.
Whoever gets there first gets to speak. I only see one moving. Can you call the next group?
Sure. Next we'd have Beth Parsons, then Nona McNatt, then Rich Mercanti.
Hi again, my name is Carrie Molesky, and I am offering public testimony today on behalf of the Delaware Coalition Against Gun Violence, for which I am a volunteer. We believe it is our responsibility to question the kinds of deadly weapons we make readily available and to whom, and to that end, we support HB 450. Weapons of war have no place in our communities and serve no purpose to the general public. Bullets from lower caliber weapons, such as handguns, typically pierce straight through a target, medical experts say. By comparison, highly caliber guns, such as AR-15s, used in many mass shootings, can liquefy organs because of their much higher projectile speeds. The children of Uvalde were rendered unrecognizable because of assault-style weapons. Discontinuing the sale of assault-style weapons will prevent Delaware school children from meeting a similar fate, having to have their parents offer DNA samples for identification purposes. As a mother, I could not bear it. I urge the members of the House Admin Committee to release this bill to the floor of the House for a full vote. The time for action is now.
Oh, go ahead, come on. Both of you are up, so it doesn't matter.
I heard my name outside, so I just came back. My name is John Rigby. I'm a resident of Seaford, Delaware. The guns that you're banning in this bill are guns that are used rarely in crime and are often used as defensive weapons. In fact, they're excellent as defensive weapons. They're easier for someone to shoot accurately, and accuracy is important because it keeps you from hitting people you don't want to hit if you're in a defensive situation. And they're used that way regularly. In fact, it's easier to train someone to use one than a handgun. A handgun's kind of a specialty tool. So I urge you not to pass this bill. I'm going to keep it short. Thanks.
Thank you.
So we have Joseph Taylor, Nona McNatt, Beth Parsons, Stephanie Ingram, Richard Mercanti.
My name is Rich Mercanti. I am a veteran. I shot the M16 in the Army. The AR-15 is not an M16. The A in that does not stand for assault. The A means it was made by a company, this is the AR-15, was made by a company named Armalite. The fact that you want to ban a weapon because of cosmetics, a flash suppressor, a pistol grip, a piece of plastic on the barrel that stops you from burning your hand. And all guns get hot if you've ever shot one. They are cosmetic. They have nothing to do with the function of the rifle. Whether it has a flash suppressor or anything else, it doesn't make any difference. You are banning a commonly owned rifle in the United States, and it's unconstitutional.
Yes, go ahead.
I would like to share with you some thoughts on the banning of assault weapons. My name is Nona McNatt. I'm the mother of 3. I'm the grandmother of 4. I'm a sister, a daughter, an aunt, and a great aunt. I'm a friend to many. I'm also a certified nurse midwife. I began providing maternity care for the women of Kent County in 1986. During my practice, I was privileged to deliver over 1,200 babies. Many of those babies are now having babies of their own. These children deserve to be born into a world free of violence. These children deserve to be born into a world free of fear. You have the responsibility to make that happen. Ban assault weapons now.
So next we have Stephanie Ingram, then Richard Ellwinger, Kenneth Jones, then Steve Benz.
Stephanie Ingram, President of the Delaware State Education Association. According to research conducted by NEA, Every Town for Gun Safety, and AFT, we know what gun violence in American schools looks like. We know those committing gun violence on school grounds, especially active shooters, often have a connection to the school. Guns used in school-based violence generally come from the shooter's home or the homes of family and friends. And we know those guns are typically military-style assault weapons. HB 450 can stop the next tragedy. It is true you are seeing a new face on the age-old gun debate, our students and our educators, and we won't be silenced. Together, we are demanding that the adults in power keep them safe, and we will not stand by and allow elected officials to fail them any longer. As an educator and a caring adult, I know as well as you do, our schools are supposed to be safe spaces where students can come to discover their passion for learning. We cannot have safe schools without safe communities. Thank you.
Hello again, my name is Kenneth Jones still, there are many whereases in both of these bills, and I would like to add a few of my own. I'd like to talk to the people of Chicago, Baltimore, as this bill is taken from Maryland and New York, and they have the most strict gun laws in the nation, yet they have the highest gun violence in the nation as well. You cannot legislate evil, as it's been said over and over. So the thing that we talk about safe spaces, we look at gun violence and in the malls and in the schools, and most of the time, those places have little signs that say guns are not allowed. If the guns were allowed, if the teachers were allowed to carry, and it wouldn't cost an extra dime, it wouldn't cost $10 million or $100 million, allow the teachers to be able to carry, and then the students or the people who want to go in there and have create violence and do violence would probably think twice because they don't think they're going in there unopposed. Safe spaces are not safe. They are the exact opposite. Thank you.
So then we have Richard Ellwinger, Steve Benz, Steve Bouches, Matt Gale.
Hello, I'm Steve Benz. I know I spoke a little earlier. I'm glad to have the opportunity to speak again on this particular subject. I would like to say that the only thing that stands between a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. And I am that good guy. I hold here in my hand a concealed carry permit issued by the state of Delaware to me. If you're in a grocery store with me and one of these guys were to come in, I can assure you I would put myself in front of you to defend you, regardless of whether you agree with me or not. And I can tell you that the particular handgun that I typically carry already probably falls under this new bill. And I will tell you that I wouldn't want anything less with me because you never know what the situation is. Thank you.
Just for the record, you get to keep that gun, and if I see you in the grocery store, I'll make sure I hide behind you.
Good afternoon, Stephen Fuchs. Wow, now I know what crime of convenience is this is. People are losing their rights. Yeah, you say, well, you're not going to lose anything. Oh, by the way, we're not registering anything. Really? We should believe that. After all that's gone through, we're going to write on a piece of paper that, oh, you have that. You think that's going away? If anyone here believes that, good for you. I'm opposed to this particular law, the other one, because it's not actively taking care of what the problem is. You know what the problem is, and you should take care of it that way. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Still have Richard Ellwinger, then Matt Gale, then Jonathan Street, then Terrence Baker.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Gale, and I oppose of HB 450. I just want to say I understand everybody's feelings. I understand where they're coming from, but I think I understand people want schools to be safe, but the way I see it is if we We can ban all the weapons that we like, but if we can't, we can ban all the weapons that we like, but if we can't tighten the securities around schools, if we don't, if we can't even keep strangers or random people out of schools, then there's no point in banning the AR-15. I've personally have built my AR-15. My point is, I built my own rifle, and I have never once not thought of hurting or committing any sort of crimes with my said rifle.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, we have Jonathan Street, then Terrence Baker, then Mitch Denham, then Carolyn Collins.
Terrence Baker, I oppose. Ensure you can trust your government. Just ask any Indian. This is appalling. You said no registration, but we got to go and tell people what we have, and you won't keep any records. I'm going to give you some real history, some real statistics. Ottoman Empire, 1911, instituted gun control. 1.5 million Armenians murdered. Soviet Union, 50 million murdered. Germany, 13 million murdered. China, 60 million murdered. Cambodia, Pol Pot, we remember those. Some of you are alive. 1 million murdered. Total murdered 160 to 262 million innocent, law-abiding people. We will not comply to your unconstitutional laws. It doesn't have to go to court to know it's unconstitutional. I'm surprised at you guys. I can't believe the duplicitousness is coming out of here. It's unbelievable. And we're supposed to put our faith in you? I've lost all faith. Probably leave the state of Delaware, and it'll be a good riddance. I'm sure you'll be glad to be rid of me. But you know what? It's a shame.
So next we have Mitch Denham, Carolyn Collins, Brooke Knight, and Bill Rounds.
Just step forward.
Hello, Brooke Allen Knight. I spoke earlier. I just want to say that I own many of these weapons. I've never once considered doing anything crazy, and I'm totally against all of this. I think that all of this is a knee-jerk reaction to several disasters. I feel extremely sorry for children that have been shot in schools, and I think that we need to do other avenues to protect schools and children. I'm sorry, that's all I have. Please protect our constitutional rights.
Mitch Denham, then Carolyn Collins, and Bill Rounds.
My name is Bill Rounds. I have heard some terms today that makes absolutely no sense the way they're being used. As an example, the term common sense, that's anybody can interpret that anyway. Assault weapon, a stick can be an assault weapon. We need more definition. What's the difference between gun control and criminal control? We don't need gun control, we need criminal control. Assault rifle, that is, I heard the statement that it was only designed to kill. Most military rifles are designed to wound. If you shoot and kill one of your enemy, you've got one guy off the line. If you shoot and wound that guy, you've got two guys hauling him back. You've lost three people off the line. That's all I got. Sorry.
Hello, I'm Mitch Denham. I'm the president of Delaware Gun Rights. The Delaware State Constitution is pretty clear about what our enumerated rights are. A person has the right to keep and bear arms for the defense of self, family, home, state, and for hunting and recreational purposes. I can assure you that in Bridgeville, several of the rifles on this list are used for recreational purposes and shooting competitions. I can assure you that there are several AR-15s being used for hunting in the state of Delaware. I can also assure you that if you come into my house and intend to harm my family, I'm not grabbing a handgun, I'm grabbing my AR-15. Because I don't know how many people are coming in my house. I don't know what kind of threat they pose, and I want to have the best weapon possible to defend my children, my house, my wife, and my life. Please vote no on this bill. Thank you.
Is that it? That concludes the public comment. I would ask what the committee is, the pleasure of the committee.
Do we have anybody on the line? You know?
How many people do we have waiting in the queue?
Is Mr. Pelleggi still on the line?
Did you have a question for what?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
have a
okay.
question, yeah, right.
Can we find Mr. Who?
Pelleggi.
Pelleggi.
Francis Pelleggi.
Could you let Francis Pelleggi have a?
Can we promote Leggy, please?
Time.
There's a member of
Whatever. We were going to be done at 1:30, but whatever you need to do to end the year.
Is he on the line?
Yes.
Mr. Pelleggi,
I'm on the line.
thank you again. Appreciate you being on the line and waiting patiently like this. Just a question for you to allow you to expand on House Bill 450. I think you probably heard the question I asked about the potential litigation on this bill and the time that it will take to go through the court process and everybody get to, have the opportunity to consider what the issues might be on both sides. Can you speak to the constitutionality of House Bill 450 in your mind and how it actually plays out with regard to both the Delaware Constitution and the Constitution of the United States?
Yes, thank you. Again, this is Francis Pelleggi, and I have litigated every single Delaware court decision that has addressed the scope of the Delaware Constitution right to keep and bear arms, and more than any other Delaware lawyer. And the Delaware Supreme Court has defined the Delaware Constitution to be much broader than the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. And any legislation that would restrict the constitutional right under the Delaware Constitution to keep and bear arms has to be in compliance with those Delaware Supreme Court decisions. And the Delaware Supreme Court applies a test, and one of those prongs on the test to determine if a statute is constitutional is whether there's a reasonable fit between what the remedy is that the legislation seeks to achieve and the goal and the restrictions that the legislation imposes. And general safety concern is not enough. The legislation has to establish that that the restrictions that are being imposed by the bill will likely achieve the result that is intended by the legislation. And based on my understanding of the Delaware court decisions on Article 1, Section 20 of the Delaware Constitution, in my view, the proposed legislation, HB 450, does not pass constitutional muster. There are other constitutional issues. I realize I have a limited amount of time, so I'll just try to highlight the other 2 or 3 issues under different sections of the Constitution. The Takings Clause is another constitutional issue with this legislation. The Due Process Clause is another aspect of the Constitution that there are serious issues with. And although I know it purports to try to get around it, there are also serious issues about whether the legislation runs afoul of the federal statute prohibiting a registry of gun owners. I try to be brief, but if
I appreciate that, and the chair has given me just one more question, or I asked for one more question, didn't give it to me. I asked, and she allowed me to have one more question. So with regard to, I guess it's a double question in the sense, there's a Colby decision that was relied on in this synopsis for House Bill 450. Can you explain how that's binding on the Delaware courts in this particular case and could complicate this issue with regard to my point about this going to take a long time to go through the Delaware courts and the Supreme Court?
Yeah, the Colby decision was in the prior synopsis of a prior version of this bill, and that was a decision by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit based in Maryland. That has no impact whatsoever on the Delaware courts. Delaware is in the within the jurisdiction of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit, and so that Colby decision is not binding. Another reason why the Colby decision is not, in my view, applicable is because it was based on Maryland law, and unlike Delaware, Maryland does not have a specific state constitutional provision that is as broad as Delaware's constitutional provision, which recognizes the right to keep and bear arms, not just to protect yourself and your family, but the Delaware Constitution specifically recognizes the right to keep and bear arms for recreational and hunting purposes. And in terms of the length of time, the last 4 cases that I have litigated involving the right to keep and bear arms in Delaware have gone from the trial court to the Delaware Supreme Court within about a year. It's very, very hard to predict how long it will take, and it's very hard to predict a lot of things about litigation, but I can just tell you based on the prior 2 cases I took to the Delaware Supreme Court, from the time we filed the case until the Supreme Court decided, it was about a year or so.
And just for clarity, just as I was mentioning that, did the U.S. Supreme Court in this particular decision and the one you were talking about, did they describe a certain firearm as listed in this bill and to its particular use? I mean, how does that play in this description? We've listed bills, not I, but the bill lists the variety of firearms. So how does that play out with regard to the constitutionality of this and what the U.S. Supreme Court did?
Well, the U.S. Supreme Court is expected to come out with a very big decision on the right to bear arms by the end of this month. June 30th is when they typically end their session, and there's an expectation that they will issue a very big decision that could have a very impact on this. In terms of very specific types of firearms, the U.S. Supreme, there are federal court decisions that have addressed the types of firearms that are involved in this. And one of the current members of the U.S. Supreme Court, Justice Kavanaugh, wrote a decision when he was a judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals, which actually, in his view, he wrote a dissenting opinion in that case, which would have found unconstitutional legislation very similar to this bill. So it's very hard to predict, to answer your question, exactly what the U.S. Supreme Court would do, but we know there are at least several members of the U.S. Supreme Court that have already written opposition to bills of this type.
I have a ton more questions, but we're out of time, so I think we're going to have a dissenting opinion here by another attorney. Just proves my point. We will be in court, and they will be argued by attorneys and not us here in the legislature. So thank you for being on the line. Appreciate your help. Thanks.
Hail to 3 branches of government. Karen Lance, our House Attorney, if you can just provide our side of issue.
If you mute Mr. Pelleggi, please.
Am I good? Okay. Again, Karen Lance, House Attorney. Just very briefly, in preparation for introduction of this bill, I did review the Senate and House floor debates when the constitutional amendment, Section 20, was added to our Constitution. And the representatives and senators at the time discussed adding that amendment to address 2 very specific concerns that had bubbled up in federal case law around that time. One was a concern that the Second Amendment applied only to the federal government and not to the states. The Supreme Court has since made clear that that is not the case. The other is that it covered the well-regulated militia and not the individual right. There was not an indication at the time in the floor debates or in the text of the constitutional amendment itself that it was necessarily meant to be broader. I do agree with Mr. Pileggi that in the two cases in the last decade, Doe versus Wilmington Housing Authority and the Bridgeville Rifle and Pistol Club, that the court has spoken of the Delaware constitutional provision as having a somewhat broader meaning than the federal constitutional Second Amendment. But the court has emphasized that while it is a fundamental right, it can be limited, and they have used, as again, I agree with my colleague, an intermediate scrutiny test to determine whether a law serves important governmental objectives and must be substantially, related to the achievement of those objectives. And the sponsors of this bill and I have reviewed this case law and determined that we believe it to be constitutional under the Delaware Constitution. And as mentioned earlier, assault weapons discontinuations similar to this one have been upheld in a number of federal circuits, including the Fourth, the Second, and I believe the New Jersey law was upheld by the Third.
Thank you, Karen. So as we conclude, I just want to say that just a couple things that some people came up and referenced is that this is a discontinuation. So if you currently have one of these, you still can have them. So we're not taking those guns away. It's just moving forward once the bill's enacted. I also want to just clarify the certification. There is no registry. I know you think that there is, but there's not. There won't be. That was one area that I was going to make sure that didn't happen. So it is a certification that you can go just to show proof that you have the current gun that you have in your houses. But I'm just going to say, this is a very passionate discussion. And I appreciate everybody that came here today and that were able to speak on both sides of the aisle. We need to have the conversation. I still feel strongly that this is a piece of a puzzle of carnage that we don't want to happen in our schools. I can't imagine not being able to identify my son. And anybody that has children has to think the same way. This is a weapon of war, is not a weapon to have on the streets. We're going to philosophically have a complete difference. I do believe in the three branches of government, which is where the legislature, we draft legislation, and the judiciary, they interpret the law. So that's where it's probably going to end up. But I can tell you the 7 other states that have this in place have upheld the ban and the discontinuation. So with that being said, I think Representative Schwarzkopf, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I'll make a quick statement and I'll make a motion. This bill that we're doing here, as Representative Longhurst said, it's about the style of the gun. It's about the power of the gun. In Uvalde, they had 19 good guys with a gun in the damn hallway. And they couldn't advance, or they wouldn't advance. I don't know which. Because of the power of the gun. The first 2 cops there went down that hallway and they got shot through the door. They were wounded through the door. They backed up and nobody moved for at least 48 minutes while the assailant shot those kids while they're in the hallway. He blew those kids apart. They were disfigured. One was decapitated. It's just the power of this gun. 19 people with guns, good guys with guns. It doesn't always work. But I will say this, I was a cop for 25 years. I'm appalled at what happened down there on the police side of it. Those 19 law enforcement officers in that hallway are going to have to answer to their families. They're going to have to answer to the community. Eventually, they'll have to answer to the God. I'd like to make a motion to release.
Do I have a second? Second. I have a motion, I have a second, so I'll go to roll call. Representative Dukes is absent. Representative Longhurst, yes. Representative Mitchell?
Yes.
Representative Schwarzkopf?
Yes.
Representative Short?
No.
Having received the required number of votes, the motion carries. That's all that's on the agenda, so we are adjourned. Thank you.
Hey, Ms.